Welcome to the Virtual Memories Show. I'm your host, Gil Roth, and we're here to preserve and promote culture, one weekly conversation at a time. You can subscribe to the Virtual Memories Show through iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, and a whole bunch of other venues. Just visit our sites, chimeraobscura.com/VM or vmspod.com to find more information, along with our RSS feed. And follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at VMSPod. Well, I'll write about it more extensively in my weekly email newsletter thing, which you should all subscribe to. But the news, or at least the thing that happened, is that Amy and I visited New York this Saturday. It was my first trip into the city since March 2020, and Amy's first since that January, 2 months earlier. The plan was to meet up with our pal Elaine, who has never been on the podcast, but should be, for lunch in the West Village, and then head up to the Malin Gallery on West 29th to check out Barbara Nessim's new exhibition there, Stargirl, because she attends the gallery on Saturdays, and we wanted to connect and all that. So, but we also got we got past pod guest Nancy Hightower, who lives nearby, to meet us at the gallery. She saw in my newsletter last week that I was thinking of coming to New York and just wrote me saying, hey, if you're coming to New York, let me know because I'd really love to get together. And it was wonderful returning to the city after all that time. I'll admit, my apprehension was not about safety, coronavirus, etc. It was more conversational and concern, or overthinking. We'll say that concern that I was going to have to talk about my day job in the pharma world and all the stuff I've been working on / dealing with during the pandemic, and maybe having to talk people down from weird overreactions to things. But none of that happened. Thankfully, we just got to talk with our friends about their lives. And Elaine and Barbara and Nancy, they all seemed happy to just talk in person and share some of their experiences and just be with somebody they hadn't been with in over a year. And, during this whole situation, Amy and I had been wondering whether going through all this was tougher in the city than it is, out here in basically the woods where we live, because there are so many people and such density and so much temptation to make contact and so little space of your own. While out here, it's much more practical to isolate, in the woods. And I spent months without joining my running group because we were concerned, about in-person contact. But over time, we got over that, and I was able to just, drive out and hook up with a couple of pals to go running. And in the city, you don't really have that unless you trust everyone. And even then, you're in a weird situation. And anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, it has to have been such a temptation to reach out to people in the city, or, easier to make a mistake that could lead to exposure, and to see our friends now that they're vaccinated and relatively safe. And like in the gallery, it was a huge space, and the only people in it at certain points had all been vaccinated, so we could take our masks off and just hang out in there. It was good for me just seeing people, but I also felt good that I was there for them to talk to, which anyway, I'm prattling on too long. The point is, we've all been vaccinated. We got to talk face to face, share a little bit of who we are, what we learned or haven't learned about ourselves and the world during all this, and my concerns about being the dominating conversation guy vaporized pretty quickly. I just wanted to hear from friends and not have to talk too much. Plus, Barbara gave us a guided tour of her art at the gallery, including work from the late 60s and 70s and the new work she's been painting over the past year or so. So that was a joy because she takes her art seriously and, can really talk through a lot of what's there, why it's there, and what it all means. The exhibition, Stargirl, is running through June 15th, 2021, and Barbara's usually in attendance on Saturday afternoons. So if you get the chance, hit the Malin Gallery on West 29th in New York City, and if you meet Barbara there, let her know I sent you. I will tell you the one other really, really rewarding thing. I was gonna give her a page from my sketchbook. I brought a sketchbook along in case there was a tree I wanted to draw while we were in New York. The trees look really lonely, so I didn't draw any of them. And she refused to take anything, told me I must swear from here on not to ever take a page out of my sketchbook because she hasn't for all these decades. But she also kind of critiqued my stuff, and it was really, really rewarding. And just getting to talk to her about what I'm going through in the very, very early, learning curve I have of trying to figure out how to draw. It was wonderful. It was all worth it. And it's part of what we miss from that in-person without that in-person interaction. So I am hopeful that there'll be a lot more of this in future where we can see people and just sit down and talk and learn from one another. Anyway, let's get to this week's guest. Karl Stevens is rejoining the podcast this time around. Karl has this gorgeous new book out, Penny, a graphic memoir from Chronicle Books. Penny collects and expands on Karl's comics about his cat, Penny. The comics are narrated by Penny, and Karl has a blast exploring his cat's existentialist state of mind. This is no Garfield and lasagna thing, although I do make a joke about that at one point. But he also, if you've ever seen Karl Stevens' artwork, he renders her world in this exquisite fine line and watercolor style. And I always marvel over Karl's devotion to that clean, realistic look in his comics. In this book, you get this real sense of the space in which Penny lives and the space she fantasizes herself into during the occasional dream or catnip binge, but that's a separate thing. But yeah, it's just a lovely book. You get, a well-written series of stories about this cat and her life and these two knuckleheads she lives with. But it's also just beautiful to look at, beautifully drawn, and it's not comic specific in terms of its subject matter. So it'll make a great read for non-comics people who wonder what's really going on in their cat's mind. So Penny, a graphic memoir, Karl Stevens, highly recommended. It's a joy to read and just to look at and just to see the craft that Karl puts into his work. Now, here's Karl's bio. And we do talk about, by the way, why he should have adopted a cat with more consistent color patterns for her fur, because Penny's really difficult to render correctly. But anyway, here's Karl's bio from Penny. Karl Stevens is a graphic novelist and painter whose comics have appeared regularly in The New Yorker, The Village Voice, where Penny premiered, and Boston Phoenix. His graphic novels include Whatever, The Lodger, Failure, and The Winner. He lives in Boston with his wife and their overlord cats, Penny and Pepper. And now, the 2021 Virtual Memories Conversation with Karl Stevens. Tell me about Penny. Where did it start for you? And, tell me about Penny.
Okay. Well, Penny is a story of my cat. And the gist is that she was rescued from the streets of Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and given to us by a friend. And now she resides in our super bougie downtown Boston loft. But yeah, I mean, she was a rescue cat. Some friends of ours discovered that there was a litter of kittens that were kind of appearing in their back lot. So they started, taking them in and getting them spayed and neutered and all the shots and everything and pawning them off on us. But that's Penny, the actual cat. But the comic strip started first as a weekly for the Village Voice, and Tom Spurgeon was actually very singular in making that happen. He was acting as a de facto agent for them back in like the summer of 2016, because they were looking to expand their, or actually add like new comics to their page, and he suggested like a bunch of veteran weekly cartoonists, and they ended up giving it to me and Lauren Weinstein. And but it was like pretty open ended, like what I could do, and like I had pitched a couple ideas. And
is Betty smashing stuff in the background right now, or is that somebody else?
Oh, that's Alex. Like she's on making dinner. Is it? Yeah, I wish. I mean, yeah, she is. Yeah, she's she's knocking everything off everything. So they were asking me if I could come up with something that would appeal to a more general audience, and my wife Alex suggested doing something about Penny, and the rest is history. So I just started anthropomorphizing her from then on. So.
How tough was it to avoid the cat or pet tropes for telling this sort of story? And we'll get to, the whole lasagna Garfield thing later on. But, when it comes to like telling giving a fresh take on what it means to be a cat in your world,
I guess I didn't think about it that deep. I mean, that sounds wrong, because like Penny does have some pretty deep thoughts for a cat. I mean, I guess like that was the angle. It's, like I tried to imagine her having the same thoughts that I would have if I was trapped in the house as much as she is. I mean, I am, being a cartoonist, but
I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
But, at least have the freedom to, take a walk or go buy groceries or,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I always thought that, if one was, in prison like that, I mean, or if I was in prison like that, I think that I would probably read a lot of Sartre and, Dostoevsky, and, just start, like keeping a diary of just everything that happened to me. So it sort of was born out of that, just like, giving Penny like a existential crisis, and just seeing if that led to comedy, which it did. So
of course, along with new toys and catnip and all the stuff that are guaranteed for humor with cats.
yeah, like that too. I mean, I slowly started adding into the like more like surreal elements, and I wish I had gotten more into that with this book, but it's definitely like the sequel, which I'm about 30 pages into. Explores way more like psychedelic and like surreal aspects of her. So
yeah, because I recall seeing strips, or at least panels of stuff from guess from your Instagram, that I don't recall seeing in the book itself. So I was wondering if there's further adventures of Penny.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't got the deal yet, but it's I mean, like I said, I'm like 30 pages into it, and it also features Penny's sister, who isn't in the Penny a graphic memoir, her sister Pepper. So, and like Pepper is the exact opposite of Penny. She's, very cheery and sort of bubbly and kind of a ditz. So it's, it's a good setup for, like a buddy comedy, which really what it is.
When you mention the existentialist aspect of being a house pet, I think of Patrick McDonnell and this one long panel of Mutts that he once did, where the woman who runs the house is on the phone with somebody saying "small world, ha ha ha," and in the foreground there's a goldfish in a little bowl with the exact same thought balloon over that "small world, ha ha ha."
Yeah.
Just awful.
I know. Yeah.
But tell me about like making the book itself. I mean, how much is working off a photo reference, or is Penny lazy enough for you to draw in in the moment?
Oh, for like the visuals? Yeah, I mean, it's mostly I would just snap photos and just use that as like reference. You know, I mean, like some of them I did sketch from life or, you know, like from memory. So, I mean, like my process isn't really that mechanical. You know, I you know, take each page as it comes and, you know, just try to work it out the best that I can. But it is good to have as much reference as possible. I mean, I like getting things to look accurate or just have something to, you know, work off of. So,
Well, again, you've seen my weird forays into drawing lately, so you know where I'm going with all this stuff.
Yeah, I like those trees, man. Actually, I was like drawing some trees earlier today because there's a show of the original art from Penny that's up in Provincetown, this place called Room 68, and you know, like we were staying at, you know, this little Cape cottage not far from there, and I was like sitting in the back or the like front porch, and you know, there are all these like beautiful like trees, and you know, I was sketching, and it's like, oh, this is what Gil does every day now. He just sketches trees.
I can't figure out bark to save my life, and these goddamn leaves are killing me now. I was fine when everything was just tree and limb, and now I've got to figure out color on top of all that. You guys, you know, I don't want to say I have more respect for you because really, you know, I don't. But I'm just kidding.
I understand.
But for the work you do, I have a great deal more respect now, just after a month or two of trying to figure this stuff out. But
what is it about bark that's
just too fine? It's too fine, too much. And I've realized, you know, as hung up as I was getting on it, I opened one of Seth's books and I saw a tree with two little wavy lines going down it. And that was all he needed for bark. And I thought, well, yes, clearly I could just do that going forward and work on the other stuff instead. But
yeah, but you don't want to be tricky. I mean, like that's the problem with like a lot of cartoonists is that they like come up, you know, these like little tricks and then they like call them, you know, their visual language, you know, but really it's just a trick, you know. Yeah. I feel like that's like the biggest folly of like any artist, like when you just start getting lazy and just, you know, having like these, you know, your like signature marks. I mean, you know, I'm sure I do, but like I'm like not conscious of them, you know. I mean,
I was going to ask, or did you see yourself headed in that sort of direction at any point?
Not really. I mean, you know, it's like every page is a struggle. I mean, like I don't feel like I have like these like tricks, you know. I mean, I feel like every drawing that I start is like the first drawing, you know. I mean, you know, like maybe it like comes like a little bit easier, but it's still just as hard as it was when I was 15, you know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like the struggle's still there. I mean, I guess that's part of the reason why I draw, you know, in this like realist kind of naturalist style, because it's still very challenging to me. I mean, like when I try to draw something cartoony, I mean, it's just too easy and like I get bored, but there's something about like drawing naturalistically that's like still a challenge, you know.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, I have analogs for that, less with the drawing and more with the podcast itself. Like I tried to convey to somebody that literally, even if it's somebody I've recorded with a few times, the anxiety that I have before every single one of these, and doing the intro later on. But you know, it's part of why I can do it the way I do it. Like if I become blasé about it or have my basic tricks, the audience will know, the guest will know, and that'll you know, really, I think, you know, make the episode suffer. But
yeah, for sure, that's the road to mediocrity.
Yeah, as opposed to, you know, being fueled by anxiety like the two of us are with no real outlet for it except some sort of creative expression.
Oh no, man. Transcendental meditation. That's the secret.
You know, do you do that or not?
I do, yeah. I've been doing it for 7 years and it's great.
You know, I've thought of it like the time I was getting ready to actually like commit and actually, you know, learn the whole shebang is when the pandemic hit. Like I had this great conversation with another guest who said, you know, TM has really been important to him, 20 minutes a day and all this. And I thought, okay, I should really get that going. I just put it off for a little while and now I'm ready to commit and now nobody can meet anywhere. And
wait, like the teachers aren't doing Zoom courses?
From what I gather, at least in New Jersey, it's the first week has to be in person, and there was no in-person possibility. So yeah, like that makes sense. Like thinking back to the training, for sure. Well, that's too bad. I mean, I hope you're able to do that soon because it really was a life changer for us. I mean, you know, just, you know, being able to just slack off for
like an hour a day, because it's it's like twice a day, like once in the morning and then once before
that's right. It's
dinner.
20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. He said that's and he's a productive musical artist guy. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. And then another guest mentioned it like a week later. And then I happened to be picking up David Lynch's Catching the Big Fish. And I thought, yeah, I guess I should kind of look at this.
Yeah,
and, now I'm 50 and it's all downhill, but
better late than never, man. It's great. Yeah. I mean, I've been a lifelong Howard Stern fan. So like, I mean, that's basically like how I started, just like, because, he started doing it when he was 18. So because, I mean, like, do you know the story about him? Like,
when you say lifelong, I was listening to Howard Stern in 1982, 83 when he got to New York. So I've heard the stories over the years, but it's
it's like through like his mother, I mean, so like she was probably in her like late 40s or 50s when she started, and then she made Howard do it, as soon as he was 18. So. But I mean, like, she did it to like get over the horrors of like her family being, completely wiped out from the Holocaust, Yeah. So
as opposed to the more mundane things we have as far as concerns go. But.
But so you should do it, man.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes, or you'll see it reflected in my trees, I guess. I don't know.
That bark will just be peeling off.
There are trees that I look at, I'm like, oh, I would love to be able to draw that, but I just can't. I'll focus on these other types instead because I know I can do them. Not with a trick, but, that at least they're within my range of skills. So,
Well, like, do you know the, I mean, this is a trick, but it's a good one, but it's the like measuring technique, like where you measure the like distance of like point A to point B, like on an object. And then like you, like stick your hands or your like arm out straight, and then like you measure it like with the pencil. I mean, actually it's probably easier to like show you in person, but it's like a way to like, to like make sure that things are like accurate.
Yeah, I don't know that particularly, but I've faked my way into trying to figure out proportions, and I've fucked them up almost every time. But at least, I'm trying. The one upshot I had was the moment that I realized it was art when I was making branches. When I look back up, I realized, oh, that's coming off the wrong limb. Oh, look, it's art. This is fine now. It doesn't have to be reality. This is just me creating the tree as on the paper, and that's why I don't take pictures of what I'm actually drawing, because then people would realize, my God, Gil, that looks nothing like the original tree. But this isn't about me. This is about you and Penny.
Okay.
What do you think pets actually know? No, I mean, I know we anthropomorphize them, but like,
I think they know hunger.
Yeah.
They know they have to go to the bathroom. Yeah, I mean, well, that is a good question. I mean, because Penny does seem to have some sort of inner life. I mean, I'm not, I swear I'm not that crazy, but I mean, like when I am like looking at her, I mean, like her like eyes kind of like dart, in this sort of like almost human way, but that like the other cat doesn't. So, I mean, it does kind of freak us out sometimes, but like there might be something behind those eyes. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, they like definitely, like feel pain and, I mean, they like have the like range of emotions that I think we do in a lot of ways. I mean, like on a basic level. So
we had of the 3 greyhounds we've had, they have different degrees of intelligence. We know that much. We had the first one we had was clearly far smarter than the other 2 we've owned over the years. But there's personality, and then there's whether there's something going on that we've always kind of wondered.
Actually, like we had a greyhound growing up too, and like she was super lazy. I mean,
they're the laziest dogs in the world. Yeah.
I mean, like we would take her out, like, to like the local high school, and there's like a fenced in track, and we would like let her go, and it was something to see. But I mean, other than that, she like did not want to go for walks. She just, like sleep in the couch all day.
Yeah. This one will go around the corner, and that's, no, I'm fine with that, guys. Let's get back in the house now. I'm done. So,
yeah.
But yes, nice. It's, we've had ones who wanted to go 5 miles, go on hikes and all this stuff, and they were crazy for it. This guy just, I did my running. I'm finished with all the exercise. But
wow, that's too bad that you can't take her on runs, because you're still doing those crazy 10-mile runs, right?
Yeah, I've slowed down. Again, this is all part of turning 50. I broke my body down pretty badly on New Year's Eve by going over 20 miles around my neighborhood.
Really? Whoa. 20.
Yeah. Yeah, 20.21, because I wanted to get out of 2020, and that led to Achilles, knee, all sorts of shit. I also did it's about 16 or 1700 foot climb over the space, over the 20 miles. Yeah, it was nuts. I'd never done over 13 and a half before, so that was stupid, but I did it. And now it's let me just make sure my body isn't continually breaking down now that I've just turned 50 a few days after that. And everything goes downhill. I was doing clamshells about 20 minutes before we started this. I was, working on my adductors and everything, but,
nice.
Yeah,
wow.
It's no fun. So you've got a few years ahead, but really after that, it's all downhill. And downhill is the worst part, I've discovered. But
yeah, it really is. That's when it's because it's that impact, Yeah.
And it was really for the 20 miler. It was mile 15 or 16. I had a sharp downhill, and I felt the knees. I'm like, oh, motherfucker. Because I know I've still got a few more miles to get home, and this is not going to be any fun at all. But
oh, man. Yeah, because you're in the woods. You're going to have to
Oh, no, I was outdoor. I built the whole, and people are going to hate this podcast because we're just so not talking about comics. But,
yeah.
But I rooted out the whole thing, mapped out the whole thing so that it was basically always within 2 or 3 miles of my house. It was all on roads and streets, but, I figured out through all of these loops that I could do. I'd never get too far from home. In case I broke down and fell apart, Amy would be able to get me. But
okay.
Yeah, it was still just I feel this, and I know I could get home in a mile and a half, but I really want to get to 20, and that's how you kill yourself. So
that's right. Yeah, these arbitrary numbers.
It was all about how do I overcome this 2020 juju? But in fact, when I was looking up our last recording when we did a COVID check-in, it was almost exactly a year ago. It
really?
Was May 7th of last year. And it's not to say I don't like you and we shouldn't talk to each other, but it just happens to be a year since we last spoke.
Crazy.
How's pandemic life been? You've gotten the book back finally, but what else has been going on? How have you been coping with life in pandemia?
Oh, just got used to it pretty quickly. Alex was kind of bumming for a while because she didn't have a job, but she finally did get a job. And actually, this is kind of weird, but she works with Anthony Fauci's daughter.
Oh wow!
So she was one of the first people vaccinated.
Even better.
I mean, yeah. Well, it's at this hospital in Cambridge, so that was part of it too. But yeah, I mean, life hasn't really changed that much. I mean, I feel like I spent 2020 kind of, experimenting a lot. I mean, I worked on the Penny sequel because I wanted that to be ready to go. But then this other project sort of came about at the end of 2020 that I'm working on now that unfortunately I can't tell you about on the podcast.
You can tell me off mic, and I promise I won't say anything because
Yeah, I know. But it's just, but it's great. I mean, so that's been taking up a lot of my time these past 4 months. And it's something that I didn't write, so it's I'm adapting something sort of. Well, I'm working off a script, but it's not a comic script. It was a movie script. So
again, without discussing anything about the details of what it is, how different is that for you as a process?
Well, it's a lot different because it's just forcing me to think about. Just think about it as a visual piece.
Yeah.
But it's also teaching me a lot about narrative. I mean, that's always been my problem is just, I'm basically a, comic strip artist, I just, I've been doing more or less weekly comic strips since 2005. So to write something that has a beginning, middle, and end, in the traditional narrative aspect, has been always a challenge to me. So this is kind of a good learning process. and that, just, it's, I'm learning to like really pace something like that.
Do you think of working long form? I mean, I know Penny's 150 pages, but it's primarily single page. Like you said, it's started out as, strips, and a whole lot of them are single pagers. Do you think of continuity long form?
I do, yeah. And like, I mean, that's been on my mind for, well, probably like the past 5 years, but I mean, like Penny, again, I just got the gig to like do a weekly comic strip. So, that's how it started. So,
sure.
So like for the book, we decided to just keep it like that. But like, there are like a couple 10-pager stories in there, and there are some that are like a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, but while I was doing that, I was reading a lot about narrative and like, how like writers approach stories. And so it's definitely something that I want to do going forward is, just single stories, like long form graphic novels, I basically want to be Alison Bechdel.
Except without the baggage.
Yeah, except or like Durf. Well, I mean, I have my own baggage.
Except without the baggage. I'm just kidding. Go on.
Yeah, I know. Huh? Who's a well-adjusted cartoonist? I basically want to be Art Spiegelman.
Oh, yeah. It could be somebody else's baggage. Although you've got the anthropomorphic cats thing, so you're already one step there. So. That's
true. Actually, I did start writing like My Mouse in My Fun Home. That's this book about my dad that I definitely need to do. I mean, he was drafted into Vietnam in 1968, and that's probably all I have to say. Like it kind of like defined his life and, like our lives, like, the past 50 years. But, I like sat down and, I taped about 7 hours of interview with him, like about his life and everything. And it's just been hard to, like translate that into like a longer, or it's like a cohesive book. I mean, if it's getting different ideas, like maybe I should do like a, semi-fictional version of that period, like the summer of 67 when he graduated college to like when he got, drafted, like not too long after that. Cause it's kind of like a crazy story. Like, he like graduated college and like he and his friends were all like, kind of freaking out, and he like didn't get into grad school yet. And he was, working as like a substitute teacher at like the local high school, and his like draft number came up, and I guess the draft board approached the superintendent of the high school and asked if, he was an essential teacher or something. And then the superintendent, I guess, fought in World War II, supposedly, and said that it would be good for my father to go to Vietnam because it would teach him a lot of life lessons. But then
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, it is pretty funny. I mean, I mean, like my father has like the same sense of humor. He's definitely pretty pitch black. But but it turned out later, he like found out that this superintendent wasn't a World War II veteran. So he was just like a tough guy. So, but it, obviously, he's like 23 and just completely changed his life. So, but yeah, I mean, so eventually I'll do that book, but like maybe next, but it's just one of those things, it's just like, how do I like turn like somebody's life into a graphic novel, I mean, cause like in one sense he is, sort of like a typical like working class, like non-urban, product of like the middle 20th century, and like, but then, he like spent his like whole life in like this, like one part of Massachusetts, and then he went to Vietnam and then went back to like the same part of Massachusetts and basically hasn't left, like since then. So, I mean, there's like a lot of people like that, I think. So
how much of that experience do you feel, say shaped you, or at least, sort of created your impression of what those times were? How much did he talk about it, I guess, before, before you were an adult and could, ask him?
Like, not really. I mean, I think he like talked, I mean, I have two brothers and, they're sort of, I mean, like they were closer to him, like growing up, I mean, they were both, I mean, he's like a jock, he's like into sports, like played football and, he like made us do that too. But then, once I got to high school, I was like, fuck this, like, I was more into, art and comics. So, then,
I'll remember from our first conversation, your big thing was getting out to the Words and Pictures Museum in Northampton. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, as soon as I got my license, I was like, I was not in Gardner anymore. I was
like, gonna get girls. No, I'm getting comics. Yeah. That's
yeah. I know. Well, I mean, I thought comics were cool and like, girls would be into it.
Yeah, we were so wrong, but it's okay. It's a different time,
Yeah, I mean, now they are. Kids today,
You don't know what we went through.
Yeah. So I mean, it was always kind of like a fractured like relationship, and he was definitely like very, very like bitter, about like everything, and he just never got help. So especially like in high school, it was it's like walking on eggshells around him. But but he really didn't tell me anything about that until like until recently, and until like I sat down and asked him. But I know that he talked to my brother, and but there's like a lot of that is like probably kayfabe. He's just sort of like blowing it up like to them, like we like certain stories that I remember hearing growing up that he completely debunked when he like sat down with me. So it's just like, I mean, part of like, I think that's kind of interesting too, because then it just lends like this other layer. It's just, like what is a story, or just, it's almost like an oral tradition, so it's, so it becomes like another like level to like the narrative. So
it sounds like you got something there, yeah,
it's still a journey.
I have tales of my old man's bullshit over the years. I've I'll do them all as prose because I can't draw everybody as trees, frankly. So that's that's my big problem with it.
Maybe that's your angle.
Yeah, that's it. It'll be like that thing in the Lord of the Rings or whatever. But
right, the ends. Yeah. Some people are pine trees. Some people are conifers. Oh wait, it's the same thing, right?
You got me. That's the funny thing about doing all this tree stuff. I can't actually name what's what. I don't know trees per se. I'm just like, I'm going to draw these things that have been around me my entire goddamn life.
So, well, maybe that's the next step. You need to start becoming
I figure
arborist.
If I know too much, it'll get too weird if I start to know too much about what I'm doing. But in any respect. But but let me ask, when we talk about that sense of anxiety that you brought up, or the challenge of every page. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you're learning or growing through each project, even if something's like an evolutionary dead end? Do you? I know you feel you're making progress in some ways, but
Oh
do
yeah,
you get that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm getting better for sure. I mean, it's all one step forward, two steps back. But like I'll look at stuff. Well, I mean, even Penny. I mean, I finished Penny in 2019, and I look back on it and think, I'm much better now.
Toughest part of drawing the cat? What was toughest about drawing her?
Oh, just all the patterns. I mean, like she's a tortie, and it's just there's all kinds of different values and shades and all that going on. I mean, it's it was like madness, and I was drawing it mostly all with a pen, like a Hum 102 dip pen on like a crow quill, and so it was I was really just making sure that every pattern on her fur was like correct, and so it was really good for my graphomania.
Yeah.
But like that was like the most time consuming, but it was also just drawing my apartment like in general. I mean, if I have to mix that color of like bluish gray that like my floorboards are one more time, man. So I mean, and like I think that's why like the sequel has to just take place in this like other dimension, because I just can't draw
for convenience's sake.
Yeah, or like the bricks, like anything. Yeah.
You mentioned that cartoony style would be a trick or cheating, but how much do you look at hey, maybe I need to break out of the fine line hyperreal thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, I keep sketchbooks, and I mean, like during 2020, like that's what the experimentation was. I was trying like simpler styles, and I've been buying a lot of books. I mean, like more so than usual, like this past year and a half.
Yeah.
And, especially those artist editions that IDW has been putting out. So,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So yeah, like see who's been. I mean, I've been studying like Gene Cologne's like Tomb of Dracula, like that sort of style.
Yeah.
It's like it's like Tom Palmer, Senior, inked it, but he has this really beautiful like brush line, and and just looking at it like an artist edition, it's amazing like how like loose it is, because like it looks so tight when shrunk down, but looking at like the photograph of the originals, it's like amazing. It just looks so dashed out. It's so confident. So
Well, Palmer had a tendency to overwhelm his pencilers, as I recall.
Yeah.
Things tended to look like a Tom Palmer book as opposed to
yeah.
the various others. Colin has always got his style just in terms of what he's choosing visually, certainly. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, and there is something tricky about him. But yeah, I mean, like Palmer. Well, that's what makes like a great inker, though, is that like you can see their line. It's like distinctly them. I mean, it's like Bill Sienkiewicz. Like whenever he inks somebody, it's always still Sienkiewicz. He could ink like Peter Bagg and
yeah. Well, to totally nerd out, it was actually this isn't even total. We both know we could go far nerdier, but
let's do it.
When Frank Miller was doing the first Daredevil run with Klaus Janson, and over time he shifted away from penciling to just doing breakdowns, and Janson was finishing a lot more.
Yeah.
You could sort of see it, but as like a 10 or 11-year-old who was too young to be reading those comics, it was like, I think something's a little different here, but, it wasn't quite distinct enough. You look back, adult eyes, you can see, Miller was doing, this is more Jansen heavy than Frank Miller per se. But
well, that's like Dark Knight too, right? I mean, like Dark Knight is basically Klaus Janson, isn't it? I mean, like the later issues.
Yeah. So we've heard, I also have, I have my bizarre story about meeting Frank Miller at a party and not realizing it was him until we were maybe 20 minutes into conversation. But
and then did he stop talking to you?
No, it was great because I know how to be, even back, this is pre-podcast, this is 2004. I know how to be cool around, even if it's somebody I was incredibly nerdy over back when I was a teen. It's still easy for me not to do that. And a pal of mine was pissed off that I didn't invite him to the party when he found out Frank Miller was there, but admitted he would have been the guy just walking behind Frank and bowing the entire time and being that embarrassing guy. So, God. Much like with the show, I know how to make people feel ill at ease, but at least they're in a steady state with it.
Yeah, well, good.
But it was a funny one because we were in a while and I was like, so wait, by Lynn, you mean Lynn Varley, right? He's like, yeah. It's like, that would make you Frank Miller. Oh, okay. Well, I really enjoyed your work over the years. And that's how you put it so they don't, I'm a huge fan of your stuff. That's low key, I find is better than slavering, I suppose.
I know it's weird. I mean, people are weird about that. I mean, it's I always just try to keep it like essentially we're like colleagues, so just try to keep it like collegiate. Yeah. So
whereas I've just got I'm a reader of comics. I get to like play some degree of distance, but but tell me. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah. No.
I was just wondering when you talked about the, growth with projects and, developing, I was wondering about the New Yorker work and how, I don't want to say acclimated, but, how long it took you to get in a groove or whether you feel as though you've sort of captured that style of humor, a Carl Stevens version of that sort of humor and that sort of drawing.
I mean, that's a whole different thing because I still haven't, I've gotten into a groove of like where I'm, thinking about gags more than I was when I first started. But, I definitely feel like I'm learning, where there's just so much more that I need to learn. I mean, I even bought, Mankoff's book, The Naked Cartoonist, just to read it, just to, get some ideas for like prompts. I mean, because like that's I find that's like the hardest part is just trying to come up with, like scenarios. I mean, because there's all the cliches. There's like 200 different cliches that you can pick from. Like the desert island or like all that stuff. And sometimes those can be good prompts, but um, it's not really like a groove for me. I mean, usually I've been relying on, being struck by inspiration, which is horrible, which you shouldn't do if you're like trying to reliably do it. But, it's more just kind of keeping your mind open to like, that like anything could be funny,
Yeah.
And so but I mean, but it's also like the drawing too. For like the first couple years, like I was, inking like, almost like finished inks for like every submission. And, that was, up, it was like five or six I would, submit every week. And so, that was like a lot of drawing, but lately I've just been allowing myself to put pencil images in there because, in the beginning, Emma said that, to give them an idea of like how it's going to look, I should, finish the cartoons. And once I did that, I like sold one. So, but just out of an obsession, I guess I just keep finishing them. So, but yeah, so now that's like the biggest thing. So just to make it easier and to like streamline it, but it's also, I like needed to do something because the like pressures of just trying to finish this new book, it's, if I'm going to do both, I'm going to need to, simplify the New Yorker submissions.
Not tricks, but you don't have to go whole hog.
That's right. I can just keep it in pencils. It's like, okay, you get it. It's, it's the car thief is renting a car. That's the joke, right? And like this one is like, it was rejected. So it's like, of course it was, but, but, it was like a car thief, like just renting a car. And then like the guy at like like Hertz was like, okay, so here's the keys, like just sign here and you get it. And he's like, okay, thanks. Car thief's vacation. It's hilarious. Come on, Remnick.
Yeah. Well, it puts me in mind of Sam Gross when you talk about the inspiration versus, not a production model for this, but like Sam, who's been doing this for 60 years or whatever, longer, I think. He said apparently like, I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday of every week is just lie down on the floor and write whatever gags come to mind. The next day you rough out as many as
Yeah, no, that's what it is, dude. Like I'm thinking that right now. I mean, it's like Tuesday at noon. It's the deadline. So I have 2 half-assed ideas. And so I'm going to have to find 3 more.
There's always the dumb podcaster that you got to come up with something based on this whole experience.
Yeah, podcast right now.
Yeah, see, I imagine within like 6 weeks, 2 months from now, we'll see the podcast gag of yours in New Yorker, and we'll know secretly that's Gil. What you don't know is that, my side of the pandemic is, you may have gotten some indication from Instagram, but I can barely get the headphones on over my hair at this point.
I know. It looks so cool. Like how long are you going to keep it going?
That's an open question. It's been 15 months since I had a haircut at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like, what does Amy say? I mean,
well, the joke when anybody asks me this, especially the 70-year-old men in my running group, oh, what's your wife think of that, Gil? I'm like, she thinks she has a husband who's 50 years old and can grow a head of hair like this. So, all things considered, she's on board with that as opposed to the alternative.
Yeah. But, that is true.
When I have to do, Zoom calls with, depending on the person I need to talk to for work, I literally have 2 or 3 ponytails in back and keep it all completely, under control, and then keep my head completely stable on camera so that they can't see everything that's tied. I literally had people say, oh, you finally got your hair cut. I'm like, yeah, that's what happened,
I think you should give yourself like an epic mullet. I think you should go back to your high school days and just, and just like cut yourself some bangs and then like tease it up a bit.
The look that I enjoy when I have just the top tied back, not in a man bun, it's a little further back in a ponytail, but I leave the rest of the back down. It's basically Russian oligarch. And, because it's just pouring down my shoulders and back all curly. I'm like, I can kind of rock this, a demographic of 1. I've got this look pulled off, but that's been the, how are you, oh, sorry, go on.
Are you good at guitar solos? Because
air guitar, that's it.
Okay.
I could pull off this whole thing. Or the look is John Hamm from that SNL skit when he plays the guy with the sax who just bursts into people's world, and he's got the all the hair and back, and
right, yeah.
I'm just not John Hamm. Although Leslie Stein and I have talked about the two of us getting completely ripped in time for con season whenever that starts again, and I'll be working out. She'll be, getting all the exercise in, and we'll show up as the two buff people in cartooning. But,
oh yeah. Well, I'm right there with you. So
are you just running, or are you doing real work or other workouts now?
I'm right there with you, man.
I'm just saying, we all have to show some sort of change for the past year plus.
No, I mean, like it doesn't change that. I mean, we were all. I mean, like the workout routine hasn't changed. I mean, we're just still running every day, and
So I think you need to go full like prison and just start weights every day and just tat it up and just completely jacked.
Yeah, right, and just be like Glenn Danzig, or like Frank Frazetta. Actually, Frazetta is somebody that I've been staring at during pandemic. I mean, because I looked at Frazetta, but there was a period of like 10 or 15 years, like after art school, and I was all jacked up on like old master art, and it's like Frazetta, whatever, these fantasy artists. But like like these past couple of years, I told you I bought like all the heavy metals from 1977 to 1987.
I don't recall that. No,
I didn't tell you that. Yeah,
no.
Yeah, I just went on a tear. It was mostly just reconnecting with like Mobius. It's like, okay, like I want to study Mobius again, so I'm just gonna get all these heavy metals because I know there's going to be some weird story that I'm going to miss, and it's kind of spotty to track down the collections nowadays. But anyways, so like the collector bug started up, but it's great because there's just all these like incredible artists that I completely forgot about. So like Kaza but Frank Zetta, like Frank Frazetta, obviously was like part of that, and so just like studying, especially his like pen and ink work. I mean, it's really, again, it's just this beautiful, like lush, he could really like sling a brush, like I don't know how he's getting these lines, I
was thinking of, what was it, Johnny Comet? The Daily Strip way back. Yeah. And even that, like when you see old interviews with Jaime Hernandez when he would talk about that, and it's just that, well, it's like the guest last week when I recorded with Sherry Flanagan, and you look at the new collection of her stuff. It's a question I have for you also when it comes to reproduction of like the sort of inking and watercolors that you do, like seeing the repro of her stuff cleaned up and it's not printed on 1983 National Lampoon paper, you realize, holy shit, did she have a great line? It's just gorgeous to look at. So, but with Frazetta, it's a different world, but
it's true. But that's just it. Like that's when you realize like what artists, these old comic strip people were, like they were just putting everything in there. I mean, it's the same with like Alex Raymond or even like a, Milt Caniff or like somebody, like if you see their originals, it's, it's like amazing to just all those fine lines that are just completely just gone, like in that like primitive printing technology, but I mean, it speaks to them as being real artists, but also it's like nowadays, I mean, we have incredible print technology. So, I mean, like, why wouldn't you put everything you could into like the drawings? Because, you like are able to reproduce even like the finest lines. So
because it takes time. And it's like Nina Bunjevac when she finally got away from stippling, when she realized, as Drew Friedman did also, there are more entertaining ways to go blind than doing that. But
yeah, Drew Friedman. Yeah. He calls them Jew dots, doesn't he?
Listen, they worked. They helped him build a career. He moved past it, but
Yeah, like those are. Yeah, I mean, like those two cats. I mean, especially Nina. I mean, that it's insane. I mean, I do a lot of cross hatching, but it's not as like clean, I guess, as like hers. I mean, that's another level.
Yeah. But you also, I don't want to say produce more pages regularly, but you were doing longer form work you're doing regular work, more often. So,
That's
but
true.
when it comes to that reproduction, like how much of that do you stay on top of with the publisher? Are you doing, how much do you stay on top of it?
Like not at all. I just
Okay.
trust them. No, it's true, and it's bad, and it's harmed me. I'm sure. But I just, I'm just one of those people that I'm only interested in what I'm interested in, and what I'm interested in is just, making the pages, and I just have faith that the publisher knows what they're doing. So, and in this case, Chronicle definitely knew what the hell they were doing, because the book is probably the best looking Carl Stevens book ever. They really did a great job, getting everything to pop and not look muddy. So
I've only seen the PDF so far, so
really,
I'm sure
you haven't got your
next week
copy?
when it comes out next week, I'm sure I'll I was going to say, because, you had trouble in the Suez, your book didn't get here on time and all that. But, I figure when they were sending out early copies, I think I was way too early in your publicity chain. So don't worry.
Really? I'm sorry. I thought you were on the list.
That's okay. Like I say, I'll get it. Or you can send me one with a,
I'm going to send you one. Don't worry.
Are you doing book plates or drawings that are going to take forever to put in signed copies?
No, but I am for the next one.
Yeah, I was going to say, because otherwise it'll take you forever to do. The very first comics speaker related event I ever went to was Ben Catcher when I was writing for the Comics Journal. And
cool.
It was back in the 90s. It was the first thing I ever wrote for Tom. And
Nice.
I saw Ben draw Julius Knipple with 8 lines. He was just done. And I was like, wow.
Hey, a trick.
I guess you have to figure that stuff out when you have a line of people who want to see your stuff. And
oh yeah, for sure. Actually, I've heard. I mean, that's like required at Angoulême. I haven't gone, and I guess I was talking to, I forget who it was, but some cartoonist was telling me that if you start doing that, if you start just doing the sketch that you have memorized, they'll make fun of you, And so you have to come up with something on every book, which that sounds like a nightmare to me.
Yeah, well, I had that when I met Dominique Goblet and Ivan Alagbe at SPX. I was getting their books and, should we draw on them? Sure. And then they just took them and left. And, I was like, but those are and they just put a little note, come back whenever. And they were going to just do their own drawing.
Wow.
For a while. And I would get them later on. I'm like, oh, okay. Ted Stern had the same thing, but, he was drawing all the stippling, and we see where that got him. But yeah, it was one of those things. He's like, you can come back in 20 minutes. I'll be done then. I'm like,
wow.
Okay.
They're way generous. I am so stingy with my art. But it's also, I sell it for a lot of money. And so it's I'm not going to give you something. I'll do a doodle.
Yeah. Well, that's what I figured.
I'm not going to make a masterpiece in your book.
I've started throwing drawings of trees in with the issues of the zine when I send those out to people, which I think is more of a penalty for them, if anything else. But I just figured they deserve a tree. Let me sketch one out quick, throw it in there, and then that's what you get. Show you.
And why not?
Yeah. When we talk about festivals like Angoulême and everything, what are you looking forward to once we're able to travel again? Is there something you're really a show you're really dying to go to?
Comic show. Well, I did CXC. I would like to go to that again, but also SPX, because I haven't been there in a million years. So either one of those, I guess. Or Cab. I love going to Cab.
Yeah.
Even though it's in the dark Pratt gym now, but
it's okay. It puts everybody in equal footing,
Yeah, exactly. But everyone's there, so it's cool just to run into the New York crowd. So
yeah. Do you feel is there a Boston comics crowd, or do you basically feel like a Brooklyn expatriate?
I feel like a Brooklyn expatriate. But yeah, there are a couple people. There's Raoul III, who's a YA author. He did Lowriders in Space and Vamos, which is a kid's book actually, but Lowriders is a graphic novel, and he's super successful and just so driven. So I love talking to him because just get career advice. He's basically telling me to do a YA novel, But yeah, but he's a serious, successful professional. So it's like good to talk to him about stuff. And then, our mutual friend, Dave Ortega, he's like another local cartoonist, but there is like
does it feel like a community?
I mean, like there is one in like Cambridge. I mean, and it's called the Boston Comics Roundtable, but I've never really been in with them. I mean, I don't know. They're sort of like separate.
Yeah. That's all you need to say. That's okay. We don't want them mad and coming after us.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, but it is cloistered, but it's definitely not like Brooklyn. Like when Bill Kay like had those parties in his Williamsburg loft, and you'd go there, and Richard McGuire would be hanging out, and you'd be like, "Oh, this is Richard McGuire." Like, "Oh yeah, you made up that bass line, right?"
You did the thing that we're all still catching up to. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God, Here is such a masterpiece, man. I definitely stare at that with envy. I mean, mostly because it's so experimental, and like he was able to get Pantheon on board with that. It's
I think the original, I mean, I had the original in Raw back in, Jesus Christ, 85, 86.
Yeah.
Maybe a little later, but yeah.
It's definitely groundbreaking. I mean, come on, man. Yeah. It's like, fourth dimensional shit.
Well, so Tom described it as everybody else is working in notes, and then Richard introduced chords. Yeah. He's like, that was, the impact of something like this. And it's like, yeah, no, that nails it. So,
yeah, I mean, he's like another one too. It's like always thinking. I mean, it's that, but then like his like all his other works, like paintings, and it's all just he's just always.
He's doing animation and other stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you look at other forms like that? I mean, I know you've got the time intensive aspect of cartooning, but do you look at other genres and other forms to work in?
To work in? Nah, not really. I mean, yeah, I guess just painting, but that's that's,
of a piece.
It's basically comics, but, no, like not really. I mean, I used to play music more. I mean, I was in a couple of bands in my early 20s, and like I still play guitar, but it's not serious. I mean, it is that thing of just being time, I mean, and I don't know, like I just get so much pleasure just from, making these little boxes that like I really don't need anything else. I mean, definitely like when I was younger, I was, that was more trying to like figure out if I really wanted to do comics, so I would, try music or, try writing like a novel or something like a prose thing. But, it just didn't last, I just wasn't as interesting. So
you found your form.
I guess I'm dyed-in-the-wool, blue-blooded cartoonist. What can I say?
There's nothing wrong with that, and as we've discovered, there's no vaccine for it either. So
there isn't. Yeah, it's just. I mean, even poverty won't stop this.
Well, it's the upside of every cartoonist I've recorded with in the past year. When I ask that same question of how's the lockdown life? And it's like, what? This is pretty much the life of a cartoonist anyway, Gil. We're used to.
But I mean, but I was always like a Harvey P. Carr, like, have a little side gig, I mean, I was a guard for a long time at a couple museums,
Mm-hmm.
So, so like that would get me out of the house, but then I would start drawing there, they would mistakenly give me a desk job. So just sit at that desk and draw.
Yeah.
So
and hope nobody catches you.
And watch the paintings. Hey, wait, stop. Oh okay. Because
that guy over there, go get him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was like wild watching. Like, did you see the like Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum theft?
No, I heard there's a was it on Netflix or something?
Yeah, on Netflix. Yeah, it's called This Is a Robbery. Which, wait, I just realized that's a play on Pulp Fiction. And like Tim Roth, like in the opening scene.
Oh, yeah.
This is a robbery.
Which,
gotta be, right?
You'd think. My favorite, side digression from that is, have you ever seen the movie The Nice Guys?
No, I haven't.
Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe. Trust me. Just watch it. I forget. It's on Hulu or whatever now. There is a a callback moment to the same diner and a robbery gone wrong in there. It's in a flashback, but it's a great scene. But anything you know about Ryan Gosling, just throw it out because this is one of it's the only thing I've ever seen him in, and he's funny as shit. So it's
good.
Yeah. I'll just leave that on the side for you as the one thing Gil told me that I need to do.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Yeah, see. But things are going okay otherwise? You're happy with the book outside of
Penny? Absolutely. Yeah.
All the delays and everything else that went into it. It's finally here and in the right
yeah,
form.
I'm absolutely, yeah, they did a bang up job. Like my editors, Rebecca Hunt and Olivia Roberts, were, super easy to work with. They gave me a lot of room. Yeah, I mean, it looks great. I think it's the perfect size. I've been hearing from a lot of non-comics fans that are just that have cats. They're just cat people, and they're really just insane about it. So I mean, I think that makes me more happy that I'm reaching out to civilians.
Non-combatants, but yeah, civilians is good too.
Yeah, it's not just the Wednesday Warriors and the right, really the art comics people.
Yeah,
not
because someone has to sneer at somebody all the time. It's nice having a real audience.
Yeah, exactly. Normals.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's good. I mean, it's I'm glad it's connecting to people. I mean, I want to do more of that. I want to be, a radio-friendly unit shifter.
You're getting your podcast reps. It's a good thing. So,
yeah, that's right.
I appreciate it. And Karl, it's good having you on again. We will, I hope to God, we will see each other in person. Yeah, sometime in the next year. I'm sure there's going to be a festival or a con where we can actually meet up. So
was SPX canceled or
not officially? And
okay.
I actually I will digress with this to end the whole shebang. I hold a conference there for my trade association at the same hotel
nice.
Every year. And this past year we had to do virtual, and my industry is pharmaceutical people. So last week I polled them on second half of 21 trade show travel just to see where people are going. There's a big international show in Milan. Are people thinking of going to that? Are your customers thinking of going, and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then I sent last question, just a bonus one. If I threw the PBOA conference in person this fall back at the Bethesda North Marriott, do you think your company would send people? And that was a huge mistake on my part. I thought everybody would say, Gil, it's a nice gesture, but really, either no, or we're going to have so much other stuff to do. We won't. Every one of them was, oh my God, yes, you need to throw the show again. We need to get together and be down there. I'm like,
whoa,
God damn it. Now I got to set up a conference at the same hotel. And, so I think SPX right now, the last they wrote was essentially, if they choose to cancel, then it's the hotel can hit them with huge bills. So they have to keep it open until the state says you can't have X number of people here, and then they'll negotiate with the hotel. That's sort of the way this stuff all works. It's liability in that area. But that's part of what I'm concerned about. I'm like, guys, I'm not going to reserve a lot of hotel rooms for you. You're going to have to find your own, because I don't want to be on the hook if there's another surge of infections and I've got to pay for all the rooms that you guys refuse to take for travel.
Yeah.
But, we're all Pfizered up. So some of us are Moderna and J&J also. So, my part of the industry is doing pretty well with all that. So
yeah, I would imagine.
But yeah, so we'll see. We'll have SPX, or we'll all be at a big gym in Brooklyn or something.
That's right. Pumping iron, cartoonist version.
I'm telling you, me and Leslie, we're going to show up just buff as shit.
Really funny. Totally should.
Yeah, except, I actually look at myself and I'm still a pencil neck geek. But anyway, but thanks for coming on, man. I enjoy the hell out of the book, and I will foist it off on people, even my dog friends, because I think they'll appreciate the cat side of life.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it's not either or, right? I mean, I grew up with dogs. So this is informed by dogs.
Yes, but it's anthropomorphics overall. But we think Benny has his existential moments also, our greyhound, but
I'm sure
I don't think they're not as profound as Penny's. So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he had a pretty rough early life. I mean, he's a rescue, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Pro athletes, they're a bunch of knuckleheads anyway. So.
That's true. Yeah, it's all. Yeah. Oh man,
cool, man. But thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
And that was Karl Stevens. His new book is Penny, a Graphic Memoir from Chronicle Books. You can find that in your favorite bookstore or comic shop, or order it from either of those. And like we talk about, it would make a great gift for a pro-cat, but not necessarily comics person in your life. So check it out. Now, Karl's comics and illustrations show up with disturbing frequency in the New Yorker and the New York Review of Books. You can follow him on Instagram and Twitter at Karl Stevens Art to see more of his stuff. He does a lot of penny excerpts on Instagram, but he also shows some of his other work in progress. And, he's got fun feeds on both of those social media platforms. And that is KarlStevensArt. Karl Stevens Art, all one word, Karl with a K. Links to that will be in the show and episode notes for this one. And there are Linktree links from both of those where you can find more of his stuff, including his gallery shows and how to buy his original art. Now, you can support the Virtual Memories show by telling other people about it. Just let them know that there's this neat podcast out there where this guy just records conversations with creative, fascinating people. You can also support it by sending me postcards, letters, or emails about what you like and don't like about the show, or just what you're up to, and just let me know that you're out there and listening. You can also leave me a message on my Google Voice number, which is 973-869-9659. I don't receive calls directly, so you don't have to worry about me picking up and actually having to talk to me. You can just leave a message. It can be up to 3 minutes. Then you can call again, leave a second message if you get cut off. But again, tell me what you like and don't like about the show, who you'd like to hear me record with, what movie or TV show, book, or piece of music or comic or whatever you think I should turn listeners on to. And if it's cool to include your voice excerpt on an episode of the show, let me know that too. But as far as financial support, I don't need it. My job takes care of me pretty well. My expenses are still way down. I haven't sort of going back into the city yet to record in-person podcasts, which was the bulk of the expenses for the show. So if you do have any money you can spare, then I hope you'll support individuals and institutions in need. You can find people through GoFundMe, Patreon, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. There are a bunch of those crowdfunding platforms for people in need. But if you're looking for somewhere to start with institutions or foundations, check out your local food bank, the Poor People's Campaign, Freedom Funds, Election Protection Funds. There are a lot of ways that you can help try to fix the world. So I hope you will. Also, I still have some copies left of the first issue of my first zine, Haiku for Business Travelers. If you want one, they're free. Just drop me a line or visit haikuforbusinesstravelers.com and hit me up that way. Like I say, it's free. You can kick in a couple of bucks if you want for postage and production, but do not feel obliged in the slightest. This is just me sharing my art, such as it is. I have to say, I've done almost no writing, since I started the drawing thing that comes up here. We will see if I'm able to get back to doing a couple of essays, finishing another issue and getting that out. It's been just about a year since the first one. And, I'm nothing if I'm not feeling guilty about productivity. Our music for this episode is Fella by Hal Mayforth, used with permission from the artist. You should visit my archives to check out my episode with Hal from the summer of 2018 and learn more about his art and painting. And you can listen to his music at soundcloud.com/Mayforth. And that's MAY4TH. And that's it for this week's episode of the Virtual Memories Show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great conversation. You can subscribe to the Virtual Memories Show and download past episodes at the iTunes Store. You can also find all our episodes and get on our email list at either of our websites, vmspod.com or chimeraobscura.com/VM. You can also follow the Virtual Memories Show on Twitter and Instagram at VMSPod, at virtualmemoriespodcast.tumblr.com, and on YouTube, Spotify, and TuneIn.com by searching for Virtual Memories Show. And if you like this podcast, please tell your pals, talk it up on social media, and go to iTunes, look up the Virtual Memories Show, and leave a rating and maybe a review for us. It all goes to helping us build a bigger audience. Now, you've been listening to the Virtual Memories Show. I'm your host, Gil Roth. Keep reading, keep making art, and keep the conversation going.